Okay. Yeah, so this is the episode we've been waiting on. Today we are very privileged, very excited, very happy to have with me distinguished Zambian poets and literary experts. We are broadcasting live. Live shows are usually interesting. So I just want to make sure the audio is good and everything is streaming. Let me just double check. Okay, so it looks like we may be having challenges on Twitter. Okay, so we're gonna remove the stream on Twitter. Okay, save the changes. All right, yeah. So Twitter was having a little got an indication that there's something uh, not coming out right on Twitter. So all right. So without taking much of the time, I'm very excited. I'm very honored to be sharing with you. These are intelligent experts in their respective fields. They are based in Zambian. These are Zambian literary experts. So right now, I have one of the guests who has joined the studio. So we're gonna go live, connecting to Zambia to link Anna Zgambo. Anna Zgambo, she's a literary expert who has written extensively in the literature space. So I don't want to talk for her. I'll bring her up into the studio so she can share with us as we wait for the others. So, Anna, can you hear me loud and clear on your end?
Yes, greetings, Noah. Good morning to you in the USA. Good evening to those in Africa.
Thank you, thank you. It's always a pleasure to interact with intelligent people like yourself. So, at the end of this conversation, I always feel that I've gained something each time when I talk to experts like yourself. So today we're looking at poetry. You are a poet yourself. So let's just, for those who may not be familiar with you, give us just a little background about yourself and what you do.
Thank you, Noah. My name is Anna Zgambo. I was born in Luseke in November 1989. After completing secondary school, I decided to study English literature. I graduated from the University of Pretoria with the degree Bachelor of Arts, Languages in English Studies. I also did Master of Arts in Literature at the University of Zambia. I hope to graduate in May 2024. I am now studying creative writing at Open Window University in Luseke. I love poetry. I am the author of Read Prose Poetry, a book published by Zambia Educational Publishing House. My book was a finalist in the Ngoma Awards 2022. I'm ready to talk about poetry today. Let's talk about poems.
Great, great. Yeah, it's poetry has always fascinated me, especially when I was in high school. Back in the, I think the time when I was in high school, the dinosaurs were still roaming around the earth. That's how long and far away it has been. But I'm just fascinated with literature and just the art of writing, playing around with words. So as we are waiting for, this is a live broadcast. We are broadcasting live, so we are waiting for the two other poets to get connected. You know, sometimes when you're doing these live shows, there are challenges with the internet. There are challenges in some, depending on the part of the world where you are. So we hope to have two more guests joining us as we proceed. So uh, Anna, tell us a little bit about. So you've shared your background, and you. How long have you been teaching where you are?
I'm not a teacher. I'm actually not a professional teacher. I haven't even done any like the education. I don't have an
Oh.
education background. Yes, you know, that's really important to emphasize this. Most people, when you tell them you do literature or you're into English, they automatically think English teacher. And that's one of the reasons why I think the field of English is misunderstood. Most of us are just seen as English teachers. I don't have I'm not a professional teacher. As I said, my degree is Bachelor of Arts, Languages and English Studies. I just specialize in English, in literature, and I'm a writer. I've been working as a full-time writer since 2014.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm happy that you clarified that, because most people, myself included, sometimes when you see somebody who has that background in literature and English, the assumption is that they are teaching somewhere. So that's, thank you for that clarification. So we're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, hopefully, we'll now jump into the main gist of our conversation and take it from there. So we're going to take a short break. Yeah, so if you're just joining us, we are talking to Anna. She's a distinguished author and poet. So the first question we have for her is, what role does poetry play in preserving and celebrating Zambian languages?
Thank you for the great question, Noam. When we deal with poetry, we must discuss languages. People usually approach poetry from the subject matter. But you see, the subject matter is not really important. I can write a poem about nature. I can write poetry about the human body. I can write about my smartphone or about my boyfriend. That's the subject matter. You can write about anything. But you see, in all art forms, we can use those same subjects. I can make a painting using colors of my boyfriend. I can dance. I can dance and move my body to express my emotions. So you see, the subject matter isn't what defines poetry, it's the language. What's the difference between a poem and a photograph? What's the difference between a poem and some choreography? It's the language. We use language to create poetry. So let's focus on the words, not the subject matter, because the subject matter is the same in all art forms. I hope that's clear. So I'm interested in the official English language of Zambia. The Republic of Zambia was formed in October 1964, and our constitution states that we only have one official language, and that's English. According to the constitution of Zambia, there are no other languages that have an official status in this country. You won't find any other language besides English mentioned in the Constitution. As a Zambian writer, I take that very seriously because it means when I create literary texts, I'm required to use a language. So which language will I use? I don't need to guess. I don't need to look around. It's already there stated. It's English. So I work with the English language. You know, when people think about Zambia and Africa, it can get a bit confusing. What languages should we deal with here? What are the Zambian languages? What is, for example, Zambian culture? I think that Zambian culture isn't something that is like 1,000 years old. Actually, Zambian culture is just 59 years old because we know our republic was formed in the 20th century. So when I
Mhm.
think about the Zambian languages, I think about the official English language of Zambia. We have our indigenous languages like Nyanja, Bemba, Tonga, Luvale, Kikaonde, Silozi, Tumbuka. We have those African languages. I come from a Tumbuka family. My father is Tumbuka. My mother is Tumbuka. My chief, Kambombo, is Senge. So I write poetry in Tumbuka. I also write poetry in Nyanja because I'm from Luseke. Here, here where I stay in Tendere, we speak Nyanja. If I go to the market, we greet each other in Nyanja. If I'm on a bus, we speak to each other in Nyanja. So I have Nyanja poems as well. And I think of those ones as being more like our community languages.
Mhm.
It's very difficult for poets to break through writing in local languages, by the way. I'll give an example of the Ngoma Awards. We just had the Ngoma Awards 2023 ceremony, and the winners were announced. And I didn't see anybody who earned a trophy who's working with local languages. The books that won trophies at the Ngoma Awards this year were all in English, as far as I'm aware. And that's the situation last year as well. It's just books that are in the official English language of Zambia. I don't think I've seen, let's say, a book that's all in Bemba winning a creative writing prize at the Ngoma Awards.
Yeah.
And let me give you another example, Noah.
Mhm.
So at the University of Zambia, where I did Master of Arts in Literature, we never study, let's say, oh, today we're going to do Bemba poetry or Nyanja poetry, or let's read a Tumbuka poem in class. No, we dealt with literature in English. It's important that we emphasize this because when we talk about Zambian poetry, what is there officially? It's mostly literature in English. Poetry has a role in amplifying the official English language of Zambia. When I write poems, I want us to use the English that we're familiar with. I don't write an old-fashioned English like Shakespeare or Donne or Pope. I use the English that Zambians recognize. We can share our language. Let people know that we consider English to be our national language. We're proud of English. We embrace it as our own. It's our official language, and we're producing these poems to express ourselves in our constitutional language.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great point because I think we don't see so much of our languages expressed in literary works, and I think that is something that hopefully in the coming future is something that can change because it's always important for people to identify with their native tongue before you can identify with somebody else's language. Obviously, we speak language, we're communicating right now in English, but we have the languages that you talked about. So hopefully, the organizers and the people involved they will look into some of these things to ensure that at least there is uh, there's need and there is the importance of preserving and maintaining our culture and our traditions as a people. So that's very valid. Yeah. So we are moving on. So the next question that I have for you is let me display the question so at least the viewers can tag along. How has Zambian art influenced your poetic style?
Thank you. That's a very good question. Zambian art. has its own principles. If you are simply paying attention to American art and you try to replicate American art in Zambia, it may not
Mhm. Yeah, so we may be having some technical challenges with the guest, but we'll swing back in a few seconds to see if she is. Because you see, the challenge when you are having a live broadcast, stuff like this happens. So, internet, it's it makes the world go round, but sometimes, especially in a live broadcast, certain things tend to act up. So, we're gonna take a short break as we wait for our connection to strengthen on the other side. And in the meantime, let's see if we can play a little clip by this gentleman, Hamdi.
Alive. It's King Nachi on the beat, so you know. Value so. Jake's Justin right here, the ex-boyfriend. You gotta believe in yourself. Wilai kwishika weka. Abantu tabana kukuseka. Kuitetekelanga hamududu. 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 Kuitetekelanga hamududu. Hamududu. Hamdudu IV. Zero. Bonse tutampa pa zero. Jakesho kuponya makilo. Father God can be my hero. Nalishi watinka mailo. Apona batata ba echeche. Wali wominga sana bench. Eventually ilafike nshita. Na fiance fyo kabilo kashta. So whatever you do tekwesha kunenuka. Hamdudu ni example iweka. Senda mano mufile chitika. And put it to use inga ule kutika. You gotta believe in yourself. Wilai kwishika weka. Abantu tabana kukuseka. Kuitetekelanga hamududu. 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 Kuitetekelanga hamududu. Hamududu. So whether wasangwa pakasido Lolo wap kama mo studio. Let me tell you this, even if you knew, nobody's got to believe in you. Tekwe batinga tabalipo ukafilwa. Bachama ghost na discipline inga tafilwa. Success ni guarantee wila tushika. Nefyo wafwa ila upone katushika. Hustle your way up, something like anti-milli. Transform your few quachas into a milli. Create your happiness kwa komanda gracie. Wikabaleka ukukuchita disgrace. You gotta believe in yourself. Wilai kwishika weka. Abantu tabana kukuseka. Kuitetekelanga hamududu. 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 Kuitetekelanga hamududu. Hamududu. Alive.
King Nachi.
Failure so. It's been Jinx Justin, the ex-boyfriend.
The king is here.
Hamududu.
KMB Records.
We are back. That was a song by Hamdudu. I don't know if Hamdudu is still very active and popular, but that was just one of the songs that we love to play. Are you familiar with that song?
I hear it around. Like if you're in a bus, it's playing.
Good. Yeah, so we had a technical glitch as you were answering question number 2. So we're going to go back to, this is a question. So how has the Zambian art influenced your poetic style?
I now understand that Zambians have expectations when it comes to poetry. Zambian art moves a little bit differently from arts in other countries. When I was young, I loved reading American poetry. I had this big book of the complete poems of E.E. Cummings. I love poets like Brenda Shaughnessy. I'm a big fan of the poets laureate of the United States. For example, people like Ada Limon, Tracy K. Smith. So I love American contemporary poetry. But that's not the kind of poetry that Zambians recognize as being aesthetic. We have our own standards here. That's what I've understood as a poet.
Mhm.
For example, if you take a poem that is free verse, it's plain language, the poet maybe is confessing some let's say some philosophical ideas,
Mhm.
and you bring that to the Zambian readers, they'll say that's not poetry. Where's the rhymes? Where's the outpouring of emotion?
Mhm.
Where all of the classic poetic devices? That's what I've understood. So when I first I came out with this book,
Mhm.
read prose poetry, I was trying to do contemporary poetry as I understood it. And a lot of people told me, like, no, I think these poems, they need more rhymes, especially. Where's all the musicality and all of the classic lyricism? So Zambian art has its own standards, and this has truly affected me. So I've changed. In this book, I was trying to do plain language because that's what I understood, that contemporary poetry uses plain language. We don't try to sound like Shakespeare when we write contemporary poems. That's what I used to think. But after really listening to my readers here in Zambia, I've been trying more to add the poetic devices that people care about. And that's what I've tried to do more with this one, peruse every poem. And I'd love to share one of the poems from Peruse Every Poem, Noah, if you'll allow me, so I can give you an idea of what I'm trying to do more of now.
Yeah, actually, that sort of segues into the the third question that I had for you. So go ahead and do one of your points, so at least our listeners can have a taste of what Anna Zgambo is capable of putting out there when she plays around, mixes up words.
Thank you. This poem is called Shops. It's in Peruse Every Poem, a book published by the Authorship and Career Network. Shops. Shopping centers shield Luseke's youth from the perils of late capitalism. Unze students resort to mall restrooms. Entrepreneurs convert cafes into offices. East Park accommodates the unemployed. Job seekers finally find work in chambers of merchantry. Some start as store assistants in PHI and become emporium managers at Twin Palms. Commerce assimilates all Zambians. Lewanike and arcades protect us from dust, flies, and dim lighting. Couples convene at eateries adjacent to enormous supermarkets. Levy and Long Acres love the pocket money that our broke parents send on Zapit. In the first week of the month, our friends can afford to eat fries at foreign franchise restaurants overlooking packed parking lots. Manda Hill beckons everybody, but Carousel calls the elect. We window shop at Garden City and Cosmopolitan while contemplating the nuance between malls and centers. We feel wanted in atriums of traders. Woodlands and waterfalls welcome workers who wish to own postmodernity's paraphernalia. Shining shopping malls shelter the youth.
That's a beautiful poem. I remember seeing all kinds of shopping malls when I was visiting recently. So I'm happy actually to announce that Sheba has just joined. So let's bring Sheba up on the screen. Hey Sheba, how are you? So Sheba is just getting herself situated because, like I shared earlier, she was having some technical challenges. Yeah, so Anna, getting back to you, that was a beautiful poem. There is so much shopping around going on in Zambia. Yeah, so now let's jump into the third question as we proceed. So the third question, we put it up on the screen there. Can you share with us a poem that holds a special significance to you and explain its personal and aesthetic importance? I don't know if that's the one that you just shared or you have another one.
I can share another one for the sake of diversity, because I saw a message saying we couldn't hear the poem. Was there a network challenge? People could not hear the poem? What do you think, Noah? Did they hear the poem?
I think the poem was loud and clear on my end here. So anyway, if they missed the other one, thank God they have an opportunity for a second one. So hopefully they will be able to hear this one.
Okay. This one is The Epic of Ankazi. Ankazi's epic chronicles a Tumbuka girl's voyage to well-earned womanhood. At the prelude, she emerged from Tumbo as Bonde, the progeny of Mwanakazi and Mwanarume. Together, they were Banje. When Mudumbu materialized, she became Mulongosi. The two were Vana, the science of Amama and Adada. Chikaya called her brother Musepuke. She was Musungwana. Masambiro taught them to master Umoyo by applying Umanyi. Under the influence of Nyengo, the siblings transformed from Vasambi to Vanchito. They labored to win Usambazi. Mudumbu turned into Mwenentengwa when he betrothed Amwali, who subsequently begat Rabonde. Today, children in Chikaya refer to Mulongosi as Ankazi.
Yeah, Anakazi. That's a beautiful poem. It took me back to some Zambian languages. It's good that you are using words that some of us grew up listening to. So it's very, very, very important to showcase our uniqueness of our Zambian vastness of these languages that we have that most people are not taking advantage of. So we're going to take a short break again and we'll be right back in a few seconds. Yeah, so if you're joining us, let us know, especially those who are on Facebook, if they are having any technical challenges. If you are not able to hear, feel free to send a message on the chat, and then we'll be able to know, because we cannot tell if the everything is good on that end. So drop us a comment, and then we'll take it from there. So we see Gerry Sikazwe has joined, and the Sheba is still having some technical challenges, but she should be able to join us as she works around to get things going on her end. So let's proceed to question number 4. So question number 4: in what ways can poetry serve as a catalyst for social change and advocacy, particularly in the Zambian context?
This is a great question. You see, I think the social change that matters the most to me is literacy. We're dealing with literature. Can an average Zambian woman read a book like this with understanding? That's what I care about. There are low literacy levels in Zambia. That's a fact. Things seem normal when you're in Luseke and in a big city like Kitwe. But let's spread out. Let's go to Western Province. Let's go to Southern Province and Eastern Province and Northwestern Province. Start to go out into the districts. Can people read and write? Can they read with understanding? I've done research and we found that truly the literacy situation in Zambia isn't good. So the social change that we want is to increase the literacy levels. We want to improve, we just want to improve literacy in Zambia. We want Zambians to read and write. And the reason I'm passionate about literacy is because it's connected to this work. When you write a poem, you want people to read it. You want the Zambian people to read your poem. I advocate for reading and writing.
Yeah, I mean, reading and writing is what makes the world go round. So it's important for us, especially some of us who are able to ensure that at least we're doing everything possible to encourage readership, because I've heard the adage that says if you want to hide something, you put it in writing. So hopefully we can break that adage, which in a way doesn't make sense, because libraries are out there now. We live in an age where technology is just so readily available and accessible. I mean, we live with these small electronics in our pockets, and we can click our way, we can scroll our way through life. So there's no reason for people not knowing how to read and write. So let's bring in our third guest, Mr. Sikazwe. Can you hear us clearly on your end? So again, it's some technical challenges on his end. So we're gonna proceed to our fifth question. So let's proceed to our fifth question. How do you see the digital age influencing the consumption and creation of poetry in Zambia and beyond?
I am passionate about digital literature. This book, Peruse Every Poem, has been released on Utushimi. Utushimi is an application developed in Zambia by Michael Sinkolongo. And it's an ebook platform, and we access Utushimi on our smartphones. It's an Android application, and you can buy this book for 11 kwacha. So we're reading ebooks here in Zambia, and it's much more sustainable. For example, my publisher, Zeph, produced this book, Read Prose Poetry, at a high cost. I think it costs us something like 30,000 Zambian kwacha just to produce 500 copies that were distributed locally. So who will benefit really from 500 paperback copies of a book? Nobody. It's just the elites, right? But the majority will not will not be able to hold this book. So these paperback books are limited. They can only reach a few people, and it's mostly the privileged people in our society. But the same book, Read Prose Poetry, we released an audiobook and we put it on social media. Right now, this audiobook has, I think, about 30,000 viewers on Facebook. Isn't that amazing? The paperback, there are only 500 copies of the paperback of this book. But the audiobook, which is on social media, has reached more than 30,000 people. So we can see that digital literature is more powerful than the paper books. I'm really passionate about ebooks and audiobooks. You'll find Zambians that Zambians have phones. They have, wherever you go, you'll find someone holding a phone. So let's put our books. Let's put our books on apps like the Facebook. There are millions of Zambians on Facebook. Why don't you put poems on Facebook so that people can read? You mentioned, the importance of reading and writing. I see that literacy is vital for democracy. Why do I do this? Why am I a writer? For me, there's a higher purpose to it. I see that as a Zambian writer, I must help the Zambian people achieve their goals. One of our goals as a nation is to be democratic. And you can't have democracy if people are illiterate. As a nation, we have to collectively read the laws, and that's how we'll be law-abiding. But how can we have a stable country if the majority of the people have never read the Constitution? So I see my role as a writer is about encouraging people to read. Let's read as much as possible. Let's read the laws of Zambia. Let's read the Constitution of Zambia. And where do you strengthen those skills? By reading literature. If you read literature, read poems, read fiction, you'll be able to even approach a publication like the Constitution of Zambia with understanding. You don't need to be a professional lawyer to understand the laws of Zambia. If you read every day, if you read poems and you read fiction, they will give you the skills to succeed in a democracy. Citizens in a democracy must be literate. And one way we can do this is through digital literature. And I try to use social media as much as possible. I'm on Facebook every day, putting out content because I know that's where the readers are. I don't waste time sharing content in places where where you can't find Zambians. So I know that if I put a poem on Facebook, the people of Zambia will see it. And that's where I'm concentrating. Let's take advantage of these social media platforms. And what I've seen? People love reading. It isn't that there's this hostility to literature. No, just let's make it accessible. If you can take literature close to people, they'll consume it and they'll embrace it. Today I was reading some really positive comments on a poem that I posted yesterday. This is showing me that there's so much enthusiasm for literature. Zambians want to read. If they can have these texts readily available, and smartphones they already have phones, so let's put the literature on their phones. I'm so thankful that you asked this question about digital literature, Noah. It's vital. It's a great opportunity for us.
That's good. Yeah, so let's jump into the next question. What advice would you give to aspiring Zambian poets looking to make an impact with their work?
Let's invest in literary education. Ignorance isn't aesthetic at all. As a poet, you think that you're doing what's right, what's good, but it's better that you do things systematically. Let's invest in developing our skills. Naturally, when you write the first draft of a poem, you can get so excited, I think it's amazing. But then what happens when you look at the same poem 2 years later? You see all the mistakes, you see all the errors. So there's a lot of learning that we need to do. That enthusiasm that you have for your poetry, it's good for your confidence. But it's important to understand as well that literature is a place of learning. You have to learn the literary techniques. You have to learn how to write. You have to learn how to spell. You have to learn genre. You have to learn how to do things correctly. When I look at my books now, I see so many mistakes, and that makes me so happy because it's shown me that I've grown.
Oh,
I've been
yes.
to UNZED, I did MA Lits, and they showed me where I was going wrong. At Open Window University, I've just completed Introduction to Poetry with Gankanani Moyo, and he's opened my mind. So Gankanani, my poetry lecturer at Open Window University, taught me about metaphor, imagery, symbolism, poetic language, rhetoric, and now I'm working on a new manuscript. It's called Blacker Than Bliss. So you have to be progressing, but you can't progress from a place of randomness. It can't be an arbitrary progression. It should be systematic, where we should see, okay, you did a BA in English, you did an MA in literature, you're doing creative writing. We're seeing you going up systematically. This is what I would encourage the young poets. Don't try to improve in a random way, which is, you try to do things that are concrete. We should see concrete improvements. And the best way, the best investment is it's education, because it applies to all of us. Everyone knows what you're doing. If I say, I'm at Open Window University studying poetry with Gankanani, that's a clear sign that I'm trying to really develop myself. I'm trying to make a change. So invest in those real changes. Invest in your progress. That's what I would advise the young poets. And do things that are authentic and legit. Education is the most legitimate course of action we can take.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. Education is the biggest equalizer. I myself, I need to. I like the comment that you made. When you read something that you wrote some time back, you always feel like, oh, maybe I should have written it this way. Maybe let me change this sentence, change a few stanzas, and add, subtract, and things like that. Yeah, it's a good sign because it shows that somebody is growing, is making progress in their literary space. So we're gonna take a short break, and I see Gerry has joined on the other side. So hopefully his connection is firm, and we should be good to go in a few seconds. All right, so we see Mr. Gerry is struggling there with the technology on the back end. Can you hear us? Can you hear us well on your end there?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh yeah, it's loud and clear. Good to have you. So I know we are almost we are 3/4 into the program. So just give us a little bit in a minute or two, a little bit about yourself. Who is Gerry Sikazwe?
I don't think I'll take that long, but so Gerry Sikazwe is a Zambian poet. I write poetry around a lot of common themes and issues, but for the past, I would say, 5 years, I have found myself inclined towards addressing social ills, especially those that are a result of failures in governance and also failures in political savings. So these are works of protest for social accountability, but at best, voices that are a platform for the common Zambian air out their displeasures, their views, and just speak truth to power as well. So that is what my poetry has mostly taken form of. I am an author as well of 2 poetry collections. Beyond that, I have also contributed to a number of poetry anthologies and also recently a short story anthology as well. what else? Oh, then also I've also been a contributor to many online literary journals before I got published, and that is before I published my first book, and also after book. So that is generally Gerry Sikazwe in a nutshell.
Great, great, great. No, that's impressive. So we're going to jump into question number 7. So we'll let Gerry see if you can tackle this one. How do you approach the balance between preserving traditional forms of poetry and embracing modern, innovative expressions? So you take it, Gerry. Go ahead and take a stab, and then Anna she'll follow it up. All right. So
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
go ahead.
you. With this question, it is of how ought to rely on.
Yeah. So it looks like Jerry's connection is not strong. Let's go ahead. Anna, go ahead and take a stab.
Thank you for the insightful question, very challenging question. Poetry is about language, and we need to use the language of today. This is what I've come to understand. So when you look at the traditional forms of poetry, just take, for example, Shakespeare's sonnets. That's what's considered to be traditional. If you go to the University of Zambia now to study literature, that's what they'll present to you as traditional poetry. They won't give you Tumbuka poems as traditional. So in literature, we have our own rules that we deal with. So you can't use Shakespearean language today. I mean, you can do it if you want, but what about this English that we're using now? That's the one that we want to bring out. How do Zambians actually speak in the year 2023? How will Zambians communicate in 2024? That's what we need to be. That's what we need to be prioritizing. But it's something I see a lot, like young poets making this mistake. Like you read the poems our young poets are producing, and you're like, this language is so archaic. It sounds so old-fashioned, and also the lines don't sound natural. They're just so, and the words that they're using are not ordinary words. And even some,
Yes.
it can even go to the subject matter. They're not talking about things we're familiar with. They're just, it's so, it's so old-fashioned.
Mhm.
So it's important to read traditional poetry. Go and read Shakespeare's sonnets. Go and read, Alexander Pope, John Donne, all of the classic poets that you do in English lit. But then look around you and start, and also listen. Listen to how people talk and put that contemporary diction in your poetry. That's what really matters. We have to create contemporary poems. You and I are speaking English right now, and these words that we're using, they're beautiful. Put those in your poems.
Yes, yes. I like that because I think also in my poetry, I try to speak the everyday language because people don't use thou shalt, thee, those. That is the ancient way. I mean, the British way of. I mean, not even the modern British way of communication, but back then. So it's always important, I think, for people, especially us as African people, because earlier on you mentioned why everything is in English. We don't see the Chewa poetry, the Tumbukas, and things like that. It's because I think our curriculum has been conditioned that to see everything from Europe that it takes precedence over our own. So this is why we have to be the first movers in that direction to ensure that at least we are doing everything possible to put forth writing in our own languages, and like always emphasizing that Shakespeare takes precedence over Anna Zgambo or Gerry Sikazwe, Sheba. No, we have to promote our own so that at least even for the next generation, they'll be able to see that, oh, actually, we have such and such a person, not really going back to the Robert Browning, the Frosties of this world. No, they lived in their time, and the time and space that we live in, we have to give credit to people who are in doing great and meaningful things in our time and age. So this is also, I'm a poet. I just want to share the importance of poetry. So this is my first poetry book was back then in 2019. So this is just a little break as we take a short break to give Marita, to give Anna some few seconds to stretch. So here is a short break. Okay, so we are back, and I see Mr. Gerry in the background. They are still having some technical challenges. So let's see if we can bring him up. I know he's struggling to, he wants to. Okay, so Gerry, okay, so we're gonna go
Hello.
ahead and, yeah, so hey Gerry, I know you are having some technical challenges on your end. So we're gonna go ahead and jump to question number 8. So question number 8, what initiatives or platforms are helping to amplify Zambian poetry on a global scale, and how can others get involved? Let's go to Anna. Go ahead. I think Gerry may be frozen. Anna, go ahead.
Thank you. This is a great question. I think that there are so many platforms and initiatives right now. Let's take Word Smash Poetry. This is Gerry Sikazwe's initiative. You can find them on social media. They're mostly focused on slam poetry and spoken word poetry. And we're getting known because of initiatives like Word Smash Poetry. Let's take Canvas of Truth by Sheba Lishika. This is Sheba Lishika's initiative. Sheba developed this poetry anthology. She recruited various poets, and they won an Ngoma Award last week for this poetry book. So there's so many initiatives right now that are elevating Zambian poetry. I would also like to mention publishers. Zambian publishers are flourishing right now. We'll take Zambian Arts Publications. This is a publishing company based in Kitwe on the Copper Belt, and they're producing numerous poetry books every year. Their latest book is Venus by Jimmy Kayike. One book that they released, I think it was 2 years ago, is Bloody Rose by Memory H. Chenda. This is from Zambian Arts Publications. I just think that there's just so much going on locally. We have a lot of great books. There's, for example, Acrostics Publishing. They're based here in Luseke, and they've produced 3 outstanding poetry books. There's Gift of the Griot by Mkango Jere. There's a really good one by Henry Dandelike, and there's this one, Sketches of Paranoia by Esnella Bende. So Zambian publishers are doing great work to amplify Zambian poetry. And we even have Zambians in the diaspora who are doing very well. We have poets like Kayo Chingoni, who has released a poetry book with Penguin, and it's one of my favorite books. I'm hoping I can do my research, my PhD research on him. This is Mukanda by Kayo Chingoni. So even our Zambians in the diaspora are doing amazing work. But by the way, Noah, I'm really excited about your poetry book, The Psalms of Noah. I hope that you can read one poem on the program. There are many initiatives. I just don't even know, like, you want me to talk about all of them? Let me talk about Zambia Educational Publishing House, based here in the Republic of Zambia. An initiative coming from our government. Yes, we don't usually hear positive things about African governments, but the government of Zambia does care about poetry. I've got two books. Two books. These are two poetry books produced by government of Zambia, and there are more. We have A Decade in Poetry, Africa Mine and Yours, and these are classic poetry books that everyone needs to read. There's so many great initiatives happening in Zambia where we are trying to raise poetry. Thank you for the good question, Noah.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for the great answer. I see we are almost winding down on time. So let's jump to, I'll do a little poem as we finalize. So let's jump to question number 9. As an influential voice, as an influential voice, since it's just you, how do you see the future of poetry evolving in Zambia, and what opportunities and challenges lie ahead?
Thank you. It's a powerful question, Noah. We have many opportunities. Right now, the greatest opportunity that we have in Zambia is literary education. A new institution has come from South Africa, and they're offering higher education qualifications. That's Open Window University. If you are a creative writer, you must take advantage of Open Window University because they're offering creative writing qualifications. That's a really great opportunity for us. It's one of the reasons why we haven't been developing. People say, oh, just write, you can just, it doesn't really work like that. If you look, for example, why is American poetry advancing? Why is American poetry at such a high level right now in the 21st century? It's because they have these qualifications. In the US, you can do an MFA in poetry. There are people getting creative writing degrees, and they're able to do so much in the field of poetry. We've been held back here in Zambia because we haven't had the chance to study. Mostly when people were writing poetry, just using their intuition, and that's limited. You can't go as far with just using intuition. So now Open Window University has come from South Africa. In South Africa, they've been operating for like about 20 years. Now they're here in Zambia, based in Kablonge, and they're teaching us creative writing. So let's subscribe. Let's become students at Open Window University. This is our great opportunity right now. The good thing about Open Window is that you can do online courses. I don't go to Open Window every day. I have classes on Google Meet. For example, my class Introduction to Poetry with Gankanani Moyo. I was meeting Gankanani on Google. We would have classes together online. I'm there on my phone or on my tablet, and it's really convenient. I encourage the creative writers in Zambia to seize this opportunity. It'll make the biggest difference because poetry won't just be a hobby. Now it'll be a career and a profession. Yes, there's some challenges, finances, things are becoming so tough. Now it's 25 kwacha has the value of $1. Things are really hard right now. So my network broke up not long ago. It's not that the network was bad, it's because I ran out of bundles. So you see, there's hardship. We have these challenges, but I think the solution is productivity, and that's what I said in this book. If you read my book, read prose poetry. In this book, I say that the solution to our economic problems is productivity. We must make Zambian products. I'm not a professional economist to advise, but I'm gonna say I'm a writer. A writer is someone who makes products. So I understand in my profession that I have to make something. I have to make a poem. I have to make a book. And that's where my prosperity will come from. I will earn income when I produce publications. There are truly many challenges for us here in Zambia and in Africa. Uh, Financially, things are very tough, but
Mhm.
there's solutions. Let's work hard. Let's be productive. Let's keep writing. And we can write when we are educated and knowledgeable. So let's take advantage of these education programs so that we can produce books that are worth buying, where people say, I need to buy Anna's next poetry book because it's full of knowledge, it's full of excellent poetic techniques. So just keep investing in yourself as a writer so that you can attract the readers and the buyers. I think those are the opportunities and challenges that I see. Yes, it's tough, but we can be productive and we will earn and we'll come out of these hardships.
Great, great. Yeah, so I don't know if you want me to do a poem now or we jump into the last question.
Yes, please, Noah, let's hear the Psalms of Noah.
Yeah, so there's a poem. This is my latest poetry book, Noah's Anthology. I don't know if it's been reflected differently, but there's a poem that I'm going to do. It's called Africa. So this is one of my latest poems. So here goes. Our Africa, our beauty is unmatched. From your vast savannas to your mountains that are stacked, your rivers flow with rhyme so pure, and your wildlife roams with a majesty that endures. Your people, so diverse and full of life, carry with them a spirit that shines so bright. Their cultures and traditions, so rich and deep, tell stories of resilience and courage that we must keep. With each sunrise, you remind us of hope and possibility. And with each sunset, you bring us a sense of humility. O Africa, you are a treasure to behold, a continent of wonder, of stories untold. Yeah, so this is one of my latest poetry. So,
Let me analyze it, Noah, if you can allow me.
oh, sure, sure. Take a stab.
I think it's a beautiful poem. Well, one of the
Thank
things I noticed about this poem is that you use a lot of rich imagery. I didn't need to see any photographs of Africa. You
Mhm.
didn't because your words helped me see it, helped me visualize it with the power of my mind, and that's what poetry needs to do.
Mhm.
I've had this realization that when a poem is just a plain text, this is an invitation for you to use your imagination. Start to
Mhm.
create pictures in your mind using just the power of your brain. And your poem is a great tool for that, Noah, because now we're able to see the mountains, the forests, the people of Africa, because you're
Mhm.
using sensory imagery. I love that about your poem. But then
Thank you.
also I see that beyond the image, your poem also has symbols. When you use the word mountain, it's not just that geographical feature, but it's also that there's a meaning to it. There's a meaning behind it. What does it symbolize? What does it signify? And I think the symbols are related to some of the bigger values.
Yes.
I'd love to hold your poetry book so I can go through it and think a little bit more deeply. But these are the kinds of poems that we need. Beautiful poems, well-written poems, poems that also make you think, poems that help you contemplate values. Poetry has to have an element of philosophy to it. besides the like that decorate, there's an aspect of decoration in poetry where we talk about the images, the sensational techniques, but there should also be thought. There should be philosophy.
Oh
And
yes.
that's what I appreciate about your poem, Noah, that you're thinking about issues and you're bringing out the values. It's very good. Thank you so much for sharing your poem.
Oh,
I'm really excited about your
I
book.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so my books, the latest one is actually available at Book Wild. So for those who are interested, check out Book Wild. And the title is Noah's Anthology. So with that, let me proceed to our last question. So the last question, finally, just like The Rock, I grew up watching wrestling, WWE wrestling. I like the way The Rock says finally. So now, finally, what message or emotion do you hope your poetry conveys to audiences both within Zambia and internationally?
This is a very good question, and it's also a poetic question because there's this aspect of emotion.
Mhm.
Let me tell you what emotion means to me as a poet and as a writer. Emotion is the core of poetry, but I didn't realize this on my own. I had a teacher, and this teacher came unexpectedly. It was my agent. My agent is Mr. Malama Katowende of Thornbird Literary Agency. And he taught me that the center of a poem is the emotion. You must put emotion in your poetry, and your poem must deliver an emotion. So your question is wise, Noah. Your question is poetic. It's about the emotion. I care about patriotism. Zambia is suffering. The people of Zambia are going through hardships. And the answer is patriotism. If we could be patriotic citizens, we'll be able to lift ourselves up. We'll be able to solve the problems in our country. I hope that my poems deliver this emotion of patriotism. I love Zambia. I adore my country. I love serving the people of Zambia. When you read a poem by Anna Zgambo, I hope it fills you up with patriotism because that's the emotion that we need to make a change. If you're not patriotic, you won't be motivated to improve this country. If you're not patriotic, well, you'll make things worse. So I think that patriotism is the greatest emotion that a citizen should carry and convey. I'm patriotic, and I hope that my readers uh, can can get some of my patriotism as well. Thank you for the great question, Noah. I'll actually think about it a bit more. What emotions do I want to convey? For now, I'll just say patriotism.
Well said, well said. So, like I say at the beginning of the this recording, that usually when you interact, you hang around with great people, you feel great. I remember Denzel Washington has this saying that if you hang around long enough at the barbershop, soon you'll get a haircut. So I guess a haircut is not a good example for me since my hair is normal. Yeah, so I'm just happy and privileged just to share these moments with you. So as we have come to the end of this segment, and there should be more coming up in future because we want to bring to the forefront great minds, great people who are doing great and wonderful things, not only in Zambia but in the diaspora as well. So as we finalize everything, and I apologize that the other two guests, Sheba and Gerry, were having technical challenges. Again, that's the challenge when you're recording something live. You just never know what's going to happen. But I'm just happy that at least Anna's connection was solid, and she she was able to grace us with her wisdom and intellect. So, as we're finalizing, what words of wisdom do you have for just the viewers, listeners around the world, what advice do you have for them?
Please keep reading. Read as much as you can. There's knowledge in books. You can gain so much from reading a book and finishing it. And poetry books are really hard to read. Let's take an example of this book, Kumukende by Kayo Chingoni. I challenge everyone watching this program, please get this book and try to read it from start to finish and then see what you gain. There's so much that we can there's so much that you will gain from reading a poetry book and finishing it. There's another one I'd love to, this one, Canvas of Truth by Sheba Lishika. Get this book, read it, go through all of the poems, and then see what happens to you. Do you still think in the same way? Do you look at life in the same way? Poetry will challenge you to be more human. See, poetry is about being alive. Poetry is about the senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching. And poets will help you realize that life is sensational. And poems will teach you to be a sensational person. That's my message of wisdom. Let's be sensational.
Great, great, great words from a great woman. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to our recording. Initially, we wanted to feature 3 guests, but we ended up having 1 due to some technical challenges. The other 2 we're having, but it's been a great worth of information, wisdom, especially in the literary space. We want to see Zambians, we want to see books written not only in English, but books written in our native tongue. So for that to become a reality, it will take us as Zambian people, us as African people, to put forward, to put across our manuscripts, our writings, so that at least they become mainstream. Shakespeare's days, Robert Frost, Robert Browning, and the others, those lived at their time and they contributed during their time. So it's also important for us to ensure that at least in the time and space that we are in, it becomes our responsibility not only to look in the hindsight, we have to look to great people, Anna Zgambo, we have to look at the many countless authors, poets, writers that Zambia has produced, that they are worthy to be talked about, they are worthy to be written about. It's not just our fascination with the English or Western approach. We have to be proud of our own. I am proud of our own. This is why we are featuring one of our great Zambian African intellectual, Anna Zgambo. So we have come to our end of our segment program. It was a pleasure to have you, Anna. I look forward to having you in the next one.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you for encouraging us. Thank you for this platform. We're truly grateful for your work, Noah. We're proud of Primier Media. We're truly grateful. From Sheba and Gerry, network is a big challenge here in Zambia. I'm surprised that my connection has been so stable. Thank you so much, Noah. We appreciate it. Please invite us again. We would love to appear on this program again. You should hear Gerry's poems. You should hear Sheba's poetry. Thank you.
Definitely will do so. Till next time, it's bye for now.